Well, it's time now for a look at the day's top business news. Losses on the markets piling up today as fears over the coronavirus continues. Cole Stangler is here from our business desk with more. Cole.
That's right, Haxie. World stocks headed for their worst week since 2008. Now that's as investors try to make sense of the virus outbreak. Fears and uncertainty, though, mounting as new cases spring up worldwide. Wall Street, in particular, coming off one of its worst days in recent memory, with the benchmark S&P 500 tumbling some 4.4% on Thursday, down more than a whopping 12% from a high this month. Losses have pushed U.S. stocks into what's known as a correction. Now that's when markets fall more than 10% below their recent peak. It's not all that uncommon, with some investors even saying it helps to remove undue excesses in prices. There have been 26 since World War II, averaging losses of around 14% over 4 months. The big question now is how long this one will last. And right now, there's no question the uncertainty is weighing on investors. Here's how one market analyst put it.
Investors are, number one, embracing the prospect of not only coronavirus having a negative impact on economic activity, but through its spread geographically beyond the confines of China, where it had largely, which certainly had been the epicenter, it is likely to prolong the potential implications of the outbreak.
While markets in Asia continuing the losses to close out the week, and some very heavy ones at that. The Nikkei diving close to 4% there in South Korea. The Kospi also sliding more than 3%. The Hang Seng in Hong Kong and the Shanghai Composite also both showing some very heavy losses there, continuing the troubles on the markets. Now, Japanese investors are also taking in an announcement from the operator of the country's 2 Disney resorts. Tokyo Disneyland and Disney Sea will be closed for 2 weeks amid fears over the coronavirus. They're now slated to reopen on March 16th, but the closure could mean a hefty loss in revenue. Parks are some of the biggest tourist destinations around Tokyo. Last year, they hauled in more than 30 million visitors. Meanwhile, in Australia, the country's prime minister weighed into the growing economic troubles. Scott Morrison said he believes the virus could soon become a global pandemic. At the same time, though, he said any economic response from the government won't be too heavy-handed.
And initially, this has particularly been on those which are outward-facing, the tourism industry, the education sector, some of our marine exports, these sorts of things. And so what the advice from Treasury is not to do widespread cash splashes or anything like that. They're saying that's exactly what you shouldn't do. What they are saying, and what they're working on with the Treasurer, is to provide advice about more targeted, what they've described as modest, targeted and scalable measures, and that's what the government will be considering.
And finally, Huawei has announced plans to build its first European factory here in France. The plant will manufacture equipment for next-generation 5G networks for the European market. It's also likely to face criticism from the U.S., which has been pressuring the EU to exclude the tech giant from future 5G infrastructure. Claire Rush has the details.
Right off the bat, Huawei addressed the West's biggest concern, Chinese spying. Announcing plans to build its first European factory here in France, the telecoms giant said it will adhere to the bloc's strict privacy rules.
Our products will be conceived, made and tested in strict conformity with the cybersecurity rules. Those tests will be carried out within our plant, but also in transparency centers across Europe.
Huawei says it will invest 200 million euros in the French factory, which will create 500 jobs. The plant will manufacture equipment for 5G, the next generation of wireless networks. The technology is expected to vastly increase the speed and capacity of communications between smart devices. Europe has yet to roll out 5G networks in earnest, but the continent's own Nokia and Ericsson, Huawei rivals, are also in the race. A French factory would be a major win for Huawei. Washington has been pressuring its European allies to exclude Huawei from their 5G infrastructure, claiming the Chinese government could use its equipment for spying. But a factory in France and a recent decision in the UK to allow Huawei into non-sensitive parts of its 5G network suggest the U.S. pressure campaign may be faltering.
Still no response yet on this from Washington, Haxie, but you have to wonder also how this is going to play with the ongoing trade tensions with the U.S. And the French government. So certainly a story we'll be keeping our eyes on in the coming weeks, if not months.
Cole Stangler with the Business News. Thank you very much.